It was at her very kind invitation, when she was the Director of Tourism for St. Eustatius, that I first came to this very beautiful island. So thank you for that. Did I do that? Governor, Commissioner, Acting Island Secretary Annika Marston, Director of Tourism Charles Lindo, members of the Board of Directors of the St. Eustatius Tourism Development Foundation, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. What an exciting time we live in. 24-hour news, satellite images from distant planets, next door neighbors acquiring instant stardom via YouTube, Facebook users in the billions. What an exciting time of innovation we live in. With all the turmoil and frenetic activity, the shenanigans and political posturing, the wars and threats of wars, the panic generated by an unaccompanied package, the warnings that if you see something, you must say something. Sadly, what a stressful time we live in. Thankfully, with all of that happening in the world today, many of us in this room on relatively short notice were able to make a decision to take a flight away from the hustle and the danger, the sirens and the threats, and escape to a little corner of paradise called St. Eustatius, to talk about protecting our future. What a privilege and an honor it is to be here. And although we're tucked away in the safety of Statia, even as we speak, the instantaneous nature of the world we live in allows every word we say to be beamed to any place in the world from a device that we have in our pockets or on the table in front of us. As recently as a few years ago, only a major communications company could achieve that. Foreign correspondents for news networks would rush to a telephone and deliver audio reports, and then use the fastest possible means to courier a videotape to their newsroom for broadcast. But today, any one of us with a rudimentary smartphone can send live messages of an event to a friend halfway around the world. Right this minute, Charles Lindo can ask his cousin in the Netherlands to show him live what he's having for lunch. And yes, it really is already lunchtime in Amsterdam. In other words, the technology that connects the wealthiest and the most powerful individuals in the world today is also available to us here in St. Eustatius. What an exciting time of change we live in. By now you're wondering, of course, what in the world has this got to do with water? Was this man not invited here to talk about tourism and water, protecting our common future? Well, yes, I was, and I will. My point, though, is that the more things change, the more they remain the same. That's the connection between today's rapid pace of development and the history that brought us to this place. In the days when St. Eustatius was one of the most highly prized possessions in the Caribbean, water played a critical role in its prosperity. Ships came here to the Golden Rock to trade in a variety of cargo. That was the time in the 18th century when this island's strategic location in the Caribbean Sea made it a crucial prize for France, Britain, the Netherlands, and an especially valuable friend of the 13 British colonies of North America before they even became independent. That trading partnership, of course, led to the famous First Salute, which established St. Eustatius as the first foreign country to formally acknowledge the independence of the United States in 1776. The news of that momentous occasion traveled by water. There were no smartphones in 1776. And in those days, the only tweets came from birds. Water, of course, continues to play a central role in binding us together here in the Caribbean. It allows us to transport millions of people between our islands for work and pleasure, and water provides us with sustenance. It is also such an important symbol of our commonality that the Caribbean Tourism Organization, for which I have the honor of working, has enveloped water within our statement of purpose. Leading sustainable tourism, one sea, one voice, one Caribbean. In fact, the CTO's constitution opens the consideration of membership to any country whose shores are washed by the Caribbean Sea. So this historically significant body of water, the Caribbean Sea, is the first, though not the only consideration for membership in the region's tourism development entity. Water runs our lives. The governor said it, the commissioner said it, water runs our lives. So this year, when the United Nations World Tourism Organization challenged us to further consider the role of water in tourism, we readily accepted the challenge. In fact, allow me to congratulate Charles, Maya, and their hard-working team at the St. Eustatius Tourism Development Foundation for aligning this Statia Sustainable Conference with the UNWTO's theme for World Tourism Day, which is celebrated each year in September, in fact on September 27th. Water is the core of our efforts at sustainability. I also recognize the former commissioner here in the audience, Commissioner Nick Sneak. We must never forget that we in the Caribbean have a duty to create policies and to engender behaviors in our people and in our visitors that will safeguard our water resources for future generations. We must practice sustainable water use policies and observe appropriate wastewater management practices. We must not only enact, but also enforce legislation that regulates the proper disposal of waste in the waters that wash our shores, and we must severely punish all violators because they endanger our health and they jeopardize our children's future. But protecting assets such as the shipwrecks and other stunning underwater marvels that make Statia such a sought-after diving destination is only part of the Caribbean's responsibility to monitor what's happening in the waters around our region. We must also pay attention to rising sea levels. That is a threat to our very existence. The scientists are warning us that a major source of concern is the effect of global warming on the rate at which sea levels are rising, and the fact that entire communities could be destroyed by coastal flooding. This is serious. We must pay particular attention to the preservation of our reefs, mangroves and wetlands, our rivers and waterfalls, our precious marine life, and our underwater heritage. We must build structures that capture, store, treat, and use water resources sensibly, including as a source of energy. Many of our tourism professionals around the region, and certainly here in this room, are familiar with a program called SHENACT, the Caribbean Hotel Energy Efficiency Action Program, which the CTO launched 4 years ago in conjunction with the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association. And it's funded through a number of international development agencies, including the Inter-American Development Bank, the IADB, to whom we owe a great debt of gratitude. Since 2009, that program has helped more than 80 Caribbean hotels to reduce their energy costs and increase their competitiveness. It has saved the region's hotel sector an estimated $270 million annually in utility costs. SHENACT, coupled with the essential element of keeping our tourism product fresh and exciting, is a critical step towards sustainability. It's also a prime example of what happens when a region creates an effective public-private partnership and provides the tools to make it succeed. Not surprisingly, the outcomes of the more efficient use of energy are significant. Environmental, in the sense that it helps us to decrease our carbon footprint, while also aiding the sustainability of our industry, and of course, economic. To reduce our already high energy costs is to increase our competitiveness, make our products and services more saleable, and enhance the appeal of the Caribbean. So we save money, we create a more reliable energy supply system, and we reduce the incidence of harmful emissions. But there's another benefit. More and more we're seeing evidence that being green has a growing public appeal. Discerning travelers around the world are seeking out vacation destinations that pay serious attention to the preservation of the environment. There's money in green. Consequently, I believe there will come a time when the term travel for green will become so ingrained in the psyche of vacationers that we in the Caribbean will be proud that we got on board and paid attention to issues that affect the more responsible use of our resources. Our wish at the CTO is that we can find ways of expanding the types of excellent programs and partnerships that include a broader range of our member countries and thus improve the lives of even more of the people we honor and serve and represent here in the Caribbean. Programs that allow this region to reduce our dependency on traditional fuels are the ones that will have credibility and sustainability. Sharing meaningful information, ladies and gentlemen, and practical techniques with our governments, our businesses, communities, and individuals will help to ensure that we inculcate the principles of energy conservation and energy efficiency into the habits and lifestyles of all our people. The more these behaviors become standard in our homes and in our daily lives, the easier it will be to practice those habits at the workplace. We're then, of course, better able to educate our guests in our hotels as well, so that they too can appreciate the value of our efforts and assist us in realizing our national goals. At the CTO, we pledge to continue to provide our members with practical guidelines and how-to expertise in sustainable tourism development, and we do this on an ongoing basis. However, once a year during our Sustainable Tourism Conference in April, we also bring a particularly sharp focus to these issues when we invite experts to deliver the message directly to our members and illustrate how the rest of the world is tackling sustainability challenges. So listen out for the details of our April 2014 Sustainable Tourism Conference when these issues will be explored in depth. Ladies and gentlemen, we have no choice but to pay attention to the sustainability of this industry, the training and motivation of our staff, the engagement and sense of ownership of our people, the safety and security of our citizens and our guests, the quality of the experience we deliver, and the reliability of the information upon which we base our decisions. So let's then summarize where we are. If we incorporate the right principles into our own people, young and old, train our populations and our visitors to accept and adopt these behaviors, enact and enforce appropriate legislation, monitor and mitigate against climate change, then surely if we do all these things, we guarantee each island's sustainability. Right? No. Unfortunately not. Not by a long shot. You see, there is an even bigger threat to our sustainability. It's the threat of isolation. It is the threat of standing on our own as tiny individual states fighting against massive competitors with big budgets and huge plans. It's the danger of being complacent, closing our eyes to what other regions of the world are already doing to combine their resources to make a bigger noise in the clamor for travelers' attention. It is the folly of still debating the necessity for public-private partnerships, while the rest of the world uses that as a strategy for success. We need to work more closely together as a region. And we applaud St. Eustatius for being at the forefront of that regional movement in tourism. The statistical evidence is clear. The Caribbean is the most tourism-dependent region on the planet. What this means is that we have a greater interest in making our tourism successful and sustainable than anyone else anywhere in the world. But the competition is fierce. To grow our region's share of the 1 billion people who traveled internationally in 2012, we must consolidate our resources, share solutions and best practices with each other, let economies of scale work for us to save money on advertising and marketing and trade show space and contractor services and office rental in major markets. We must combine the skills and talents of the public and private sector, as other regions of the world are doing, and most especially as the Caribbean Tourism Development Company is attempting to do to bring the world's attention to the region. The power of one sea, one voice, one Caribbean is undeniable, but it's more than simply a way to associate each island with the strength of the Caribbean brand. It's that too, but even though our countries have an obvious family resemblance, we're not all the same. The unique combination of Dutch, English, French, and Spanish in this exciting region is in fact the very element that makes us stronger together and yet preserves our individuality. So any visitor who has seen one island has seen one island. If you've seen one island, you've seen one island. Our joining hands for a common purpose does not make us surrender our individuality. In fact, that is what helps us to secure our future. Ladies and gentlemen, over the next 2 days, we will have the privilege of exploring many aspects of what makes Statia and the Caribbean special. We will reinforce the notion that challenges are not restricted within certain borders, and neither are solutions. We have a common responsibility to be our brother's keeper. In closing, I congratulate St. Eustatius for focusing our attention on this important issue and for underscoring the fact that we must never allow physical size to determine the size of our ideas, nor to suppress the clarity of our voice. And when next we meet, again next month, for our region's State of the Industry Conference in Martinique, we'll be able to take some of these ideas forward, perhaps in the form of a resolution from the Statia Sustainable Conference, so that the thoughts expressed in your sessions over the next 2 days will be indelibly inscribed for the future.